and welcome to another episode of Cybeers. We were 15 minutes through the last one when the camera died, so we thought we'd restart instead of wasting the opportunity.
So don't blame us for having a half-empty beer.
Mate, welcome to Melbourne.
Thanks. Good to be back. Good to be back. It's been a long time. It's probably been 6 or 7 months since I've been back, I'd have to say.
Yeah, it has. So.
It's nice to be able to do this in person. Don't have to do it over a Zoom or Teams conference anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we don't mind video conferences, but it's always good to be in person. So
much better experience.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, our half-empty beers, as you as you mentioned, I've got an Irish Stout from Hickenbotham Brewery down in Dramana.
Nice.
What have you got?
Very good. I've gone for a steam ale today from Queenscliff Brewery. It's great. I've never had it before, but so far I'm enjoying it. I guess that's the benefit of being halfway through. I really am familiar with it now.
Yeah, you've had a chance to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
This one, not something I'd enjoy on a hot summer's day, but it's 17 degrees in Melbourne today. So
Yep. It's a cold summer's day.
Yeah, exactly. So Melbourne gets a few of those.
So, what are we going to talk about today?
Red teaming.
Great topic.
Yeah.
Big topic.
Yeah, look, it's a big topic because organisations are realising that pen testing is great. It's fantastic. It has its place, but the scope is very much limited in what it is. And you're only testing a small part of the organisation. You're not doing that end-to-end test. So we're starting to see a lot more organisations talk about red teaming, but I still don't think Australian organisations get red teaming and adversary sim and what it is.
No, but I mean, it's so important, right? Because if you're a hacker, if you're an attacker, threat actor, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever we're calling it today.
Whatever you want to call it. Then you're not going to be constricted to a specific scope for a specific app.
Yeah.
You're not going to say, oh, well, they wanted this web app, or that's their main web app, so I'm going to definitely have to use that to get into the organisation. No, you can use any means possible. And that's why red teaming is important, because you can use so many different techniques to try to compromise a target, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at it the same way we used to look at phishing. So when simulated phishing was a big thing and organisations were starting to do that, they'd get the results and they'd be able to take that to the executive and say, this is why we need cybersecurity controls, because look at this list of our users who gave away their credentials.
Mm-hmm.
I think the execs have gotten a bit of fatigue to that, and red teaming and adversary sim starting to take its place because you can demonstrate through those credentials, this is what we did if someone wants to come after us.
That's right. You know the best way to demonstrate it? An integral component to red teaming as well, setting objectives for the engagement.
Yeah.
Which is a huge difference, right?
So not just getting DA?
Well, I mean, let's be real, getting DA is one of the objectives a lot of the time. And it helps further your objectives. Right?
Yeah,
but if you've got a segregated network that's behind 3 layers of firewalls that you need to pivot through several jump boxes to, right? Sometimes DA doesn't always help that. Just gives a bit of visibility.
Yeah, look, and you can get DA, but it's what can I do with it afterwards? And am I going to be detected? It's
That's
all
right.
well and good to get DA. What if the SOC picked you up?
Mm-hmm. Then I've got as a user account, but you weren't actually able to access any of the financial information or personal information or the things that are really important to the organisation, right?
Yeah, and new SIEM technology is built on user behaviour analytics. They know what those domain admin accounts normally do.
And if you're an attacker, your goal is not short-lived. You're not looking to immediately access this sensitive information and just do a smash and grab and run away with it and get detected, right? You want to persist slowly over time. That's how you're going to get the most value, because then you can get the information that's there now, but you can also continue to collect information over time, any future information. You want to stay in there as long as possible, right? Which means you need to take a slow approach, a low profile approach. And that's how it really differs to pen testing too. Because pen testing, you're often quite
as loud as you want, right?
Get as much findings as quickly as possible, right? Yeah. That's the idea. But in red teaming, you want to be able to really focus on evading those detections instead.
Well, because you're not just testing the SOC, you're testing the organisation's responses as well.
That's right.
And their incident response methodologies. I'll never forget one of our clients who we monitor them from a SOC perspective, and they had an external organisation conduct a red team engagement. They forgot to tell the contact that they were doing a red team engagement.
Yeah.
So they engaged their IR, and they spent $50,000 in doing IR.
Yep.
Because they didn't tell anyone.
Wow.
So they tested the incident response capabilities for sure, but it's always important to keep people informed.
That's right. I mean, it goes to show the importance of proper processes right? And using someone who's conducted lots of red teams so they know what to expect. They know the problems that you can run into and what can go wrong and how to really simulate an attack in the right way so that it mirrors real life.
Yeah. So look, let's get into why organisations would conduct a red team. So we're starting to see a lot of companies are coming to us and saying, I want to test the baseline controls. I want to know what's wrong in my environment. Are we able to respond? I need a pen test. But then it's taking them on that journey of saying, well, why should you do adversary sim or red team as opposed to a pen test?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, right? So firstly, a lot of organizations, right, they could be hundreds, maybe thousands of people. They could have tens, if not hundreds of applications. How do they know where to focus, right? Yeah. What are they going to pen test specifically?
Yeah, and it's all well and good to test the web app before release to say, can we dump the SQL database? Can we do a new form of defacement? But that doesn't give you the confidence to say, if a threat actor decided to target us, what could they do and what kind of information would they take in?
That's right. Pen testing specifically against applications, even if they are your business critical applications, doesn't take into account some of the very different techniques that can be used in a red team, right? Things like social engineering. You've talked about phishing already, but that can extend to phone-based social engineering. It can extend to in-person social engineering. I know that you love the red,
I love
the physicals. You love the physicals.
Yep. I'm very good at getting into places I shouldn't be.
Be quite effective on many occasions.
So if anyone sees me coming, generally don't let me in.
Well, but what if he's wearing a shirt of the organisation that he's trying to walk into?
Right? Yeah, right, and we've done that before. So we've gone down to the local embroidery store, who makes the fantastic TL polos, and we've asked them to make polo shirts with the company's logo embroidered on there. We've gone as far as looking at their website, and we know what coloured shirts they wear. We know the positioning of the logo, and we get these made. And we've convinced far too many people to let us into places for that reason.
Well, look, it is the benefit of having a threat intelligence team, right? We're able to collect this information first about the organisation, the individuals, the shirts that they wear, their habits, things about their own personal lives that you can exploit during physicals and during phishing campaigns, things that make them trust you, really. That's the basis of it. I mean, Australians are nice people.
Oh, right? We're great people.
We love to get along with other people. We love to have a chat. We love to help out. Really, and that's what this is really exploiting. It's exploiting people who are too willing to help.
I feel horrible when we do it.
It's a bit of a guilty aspect, isn't there?
It's nice when we do it and you succeed and you're like, yes, that was fantastic. And then you sit there and go, yeah, but I have to tell that person that it was all a test and make them maybe feel bad for what we did.
I know, but it's important to frame it in the right way. And to come across such that you're not trying to target anyone specifically, right? And that it's not just them that have been the issue because we have a very high success rate, we have to say.
I've already failed once.
Most of the time.
I failed once against a very secure data center. I was almost through impersonating a third party and convinced them to give me a pass. And it wasn't until the last second that they noticed something was off. And they actually followed me through the car park and chased me down.
Well, it's good to know there is a line.
Yeah, there is a line.
There is a line.
I found it that day.
Federal data centre, that'll do.
Yeah, it wasn't quite federal, fortunately. Look, and I think COVID has been, it's going to have a real impact on physical social engineering, obviously.
What do you think the trend will be? Do you think it'll be more effective or less effective?
Way more effective.
Yeah.
So many organisations have done remote onboarding.
Yeah, that's true.
You hadn't met 20 of them.
That's right. I met a lot of people in these last few days.
Right? So imagine that. Imagine if you've gone and hired 100 people and someone's wearing a teal polo and they say, hey, can you just open that door for me? And they go, they've done their background because Bianca's gone and found all the information. And then we know the shirt, we put on the shirt, we convince someone to let us in.
Hugely effective.
Just jump on LinkedIn.
And it is quite insane the information that you can find about people online too.
Yeah.
Bianca's insane at it. Yeah.
Everyone always says when it's online it will never be deleted.
That's right.
So true. Some of the stuff that she's found.
It's blown my mind, some of the stuff we've found over the last few months.
Yeah, so it's really important organisations start testing their physical controls, and are the staff going to be more susceptible to being more friendly, or are they going to, as you say, go the other way and say, no, because we have done so much remote onboarding, I'm going to be more vigilant.
Yeah, that's right. We should chat about it too, because it's all well and good to gain entry somewhere by social engineering, right? What do you actually do when you get into that? I mean, we've got the right kit to do it, that's for sure.
My favourite piece of kit is an OMG cable.
Yeah, those are good.
So
they used to cost tens of thousands of dollars, right? Now they're just a couple hundred.
199, I think the last ones were. So we'll actually probably good to explain to anyone watching.
What is an OMG?
OMG cables are. So I know you're familiar with them. So I'll let you actually explain from a technical perspective exactly what they are.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone knows what a phone charging cable looks like, right? iPhone or Android, white USB cable.
USB-C and micro USB and Lightning.
Whichever you want,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If it's an iPhone or if it's an Android variant, USB-C. It's actually got a USB-A on one end. But what it's really got built into it is a miniature access point.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you leave it lying around and people will think, okay, great. I've just found this cable. It's not a USB, so, it's safe. I can plug it into whatever I want and I can probably just use this. Saves me having to spend $20 down at the local servo buying one, right? Yeah. They plug it into their device, maybe into their workstation so that they can charge their phone. As soon as it gets power, it spins up an access point over Wi-Fi. Even though it's like this big, it's amazing what we can fit.
It bridges the internal network, right?
Bridges the internal network. Then all an attacker has to do is to be within maybe a couple of 100 meters of the office, waiting for a connection. They see the AP spin up.
We could use a high gain antenna.
Yes.
So all you have to do is point a powerful antenna in that direction.
All of a sudden, they have USB access to this user's workstation for a Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah. Well, we did a physical test. Feels like years ago. COVID and lockdowns. It was only earlier this year. We didn't even leave the cables laying around. We social engineered our way into the office.
Place them tactically.
Tactically? No, I'd connected one.
Oh, there you go. Plug it in yourself.
So I just plugged it in myself. I think we're in there for about 45 seconds. We connected it, turned around, walked out, and we had a bridged wireless access point into the network.
And people don't realise as well just how susceptible Wi-Fi can be. I mean, you think of a home Wi-Fi network and, the range is probably maybe 30 or 40 metres in a circular radius around the home. But if you've got the right equipment, if you've got the right directional antenna, something big enough, you can connect the Wi-Fi networks over kilometres of space. You don't have to be near the network.
Then there's mini poners, right? Yeah. So OMG cable's great. Mini poners are just on another level. So it's the same thing. Wireless access point built in, connects via USB, connects via Ethernet if you wanted it to. Gives you, the wireless access point, but it also gives you OpenVPN.
Yeah, well now you've got an Ethernet connection into the network, right? Which is huge.
Yeah, so you've got persistent SSH access, you've got persistent VPN, and unless the organisation's looking for IP addresses that have been connected to the network, they're not going to find it.
And what are some of your favourite places to hide these devices?
Printers.
Printers, yeah.
Backup printers.
Conference rooms.
Conference rooms.
Yeah.
Especially little pits under the floor. Put them in there.
Or in big conference room tables, they often have a little divot in there. You just close the lid. Yeah. The wiser.
Actually, and this is why we say to our clients all the time, to your front meeting rooms that you that are just unsecure, that anyone can walk into, as long as I can get through that front door and I can get into that meeting room, I'll connect that device and then we've got persistent access.
And then, hey, once you're in the meeting room too, everyone's just going to leave you alone.
Of course. Close the door.
You can take as long as you want. You don't need 45 seconds.
Put some headphones in, and every time they come, they're like, oh, sorry, no.
Yeah. So I'm on a call.
Yeah, exactly. So the physical aspect, and look, it sucks when a lot of organisations remove physical from scope because they say, we know we're bad at physical. We know people are going to let you in and you can tailgate. It's kind of like, all right, well, how do you fix that?
Yeah.
So I think that's the important thing. If you know you're bad at it, you've got to fix it, right?
Changing attitude across the staff, right? This is really just user education. A lot of people don't even think about this on a daily basis.
No, and it's helping people to understand it's okay to challenge someone.
Absolutely.
If you don't know who they are.
As long as you do it in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't know who they are, you're allowed to say, sorry, who are you? We had that happen at a client earlier this year as well. I picked on the wrong person. Unfortunately, we got access to the office. We planted everything in there. We planted the OMG cable. We planted the mini poner, and I made it my personal goal to get a swipe card.
Nice.
So those of you who aren't aware, don't give us swipe cards. We have a device where we can copy unencrypted swipe cards.
We only need it for a few seconds. Even if they're encrypted,
Yeah.
we've brute forced a few
We have
before
brute
too.
forced a few. And we need the original. We need one, right? We need one. And I asked the HR manager if I could borrow hers. I said to her,
fairness, she was switched on.
she was switched on. I asked if I could borrow it because we were testing the physical access to the building, and I did that because it had worked a couple of years earlier. Another client had engaged us to get on their office was 40th floor of a building in the CBD, and the IT manager said, no, you're not going to get past the lift access, it's locked down, you're not going to get past reception. Managed to bypass reception as a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
I was carrying a laptop and a bunch of files. I hadn't even done the shirt.
I've done that one before.
Yeah, and then just asked a really nice staff member if I could borrow their swipe card.
Great.
And we copied the card and then had persistent physical access 24/7.
You know what? I did a similar thing at a hospital. Convinced a receptionist.
I know this one.
Convinced a receptionist, except the swipe card I had wasn't even legit. Printed out emergency codes on an A4 piece of paper, cut it out and sticky taped it to a fake swipe card, and then just showed her the swipe card. She didn't even need me to swipe it, right? Just led me straight into the executive area, and then I walked around with a laptop testing the Wi-Fi.
Testing the Wi-Fi.
I was in a suit, so who's going to question someone in a suit? You never
Or a
question
hard
someone
hat.
in a suit.
Hard
Or a
hat, 5 years.
and a high-vis vest with a ladder. Yeah.
I'll never forget the reason we were caught at one is we'd done the shirts, we did the logos, we did all that. The reason we were caught is because we looked out of place because we looked like executives and people didn't know who we were. That one was fun.
Perfect.
So that's physical, right? So we're hopefully people understand that they need to test their physical controls and make sure that the right things are in place, and they need to test all of these controls, right?
Absolutely.
But what about outside of physical controls?
So look, one of obviously the most important things is the technical side, right? So from a technical perspective, IT environments are so popular for so many companies these days, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has an IT environment. So you need to make sure within your
And
environment,
everyone's working from home.
well, your environment no longer has a border. It's extended.
No, it doesn't.
So this is like, we could talk about zero trust for so long, but we won't go into that.
Are we
But
playing
it's the new
buzzword
model.
bingo? Are we playing
Yes.
buzzword bingo?
Yeah, it's the new model. It's the new model.
It is.
You want to make sure that if an attacker is able to gain technical access to your environment, whether it be through physical or another means, social engineering or exploiting a CVE, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
right, exploiting a 0 day even, then you need to make sure you detect that access to your environment as soon as possible. Because everyone knows the stats that most threat actors, once they compromise an environment, are able to persist hundreds of days on average before they actually get found
Months
out.
and months of
You need to make
time.
sure you have layered controls internally, not just externally.
The bit that scares the absolute bejesus out of me is when you were showing me bypassing multi-factor authentication. For so long, it was the saving grace. It was
Evil Gen X 2. It's a
Evil
great
Gen
tool.
X, right? It scares me. We were telling organisations for so long, multi-factor authentication is it. Do that, you'll be fine.
Yep.
Now you guys can bypass MFA.
Yes.
Like,
Under the right circumstances, but it's hugely effective.
yeah, look, take us through it. Take people through how you do it, because I'm still confused around how you do it, and I've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth going through. So, I mean, everyone understands a normal phishing attack, right? Send a phishing email, it has a malicious link in there. Maybe the link asks you to review your account for security purposes because there's been an update, right?
And most people get that these days. That
Evil Gen X 2 lets you specify a website to clone. So maybe it's an O365 Microsoft login, maybe it's a VPN portal, maybe it's your custom company website.
Yeah, maybe it's your front end for all of your logins that you
Doesn't have to be generic.
You've got everything.
It can be anything,
right?
right? As long as it's got a username and password there. Essentially what it does is Evil Gen X 2 acts as a proxy front end to the back end of what the actual legitimate site is. So the user will click this link, they'll be presented with a site which is hosted by Evil Gen X 2. They might enter their username and password. Evil Gen X 2 will then actually take those credentials and pass them to the legitimate website, right, and log in as that user and get a valid session as that user. Obviously then, it'll return those credentials, return that response to the EvilGNX proxy, which will then prompt for a 2FA code, right? Users will happily enter the 2FA code, and then that's also sent back to the actual legitimate site.
And the
user establishes a valid session. You get a valid session token because the user has actually authenticated. The problem is you just man in the middle of the connection, right? You can steal their session token, steal their creds, all of a sudden you have a valid session.
Yeah, so multi-factor authentication is no longer the solution.
No,
right?
You need to have a layered approach.
You need to take what you were saying before, right, is making sure you've got monitoring in place, you've got detection in place. So once you've got that initial foothold, of then being able to monitor what's happening through the network and what is that user doing.
That's right, user behavior analytics, right? If this is happening at 3 a.m, generally a user shouldn't be logging in at that time.
Exactly, and if most of your logins are coming from Melbourne, then all of a sudden you see a login from Sydney, or your user has logged in all day from Melbourne.
The country altogether.
And then they come in from Venice.
That's right.
Then you know. Look, and my favourite way isn't to bypass MFA, is a non-technical way. And you guys know this, my favourite thing to do has always been to compromise a user account, aim to log into SharePoint or something similar.
Or cloud SaaS apps out there.
SharePoint is the gold. Mm-hmm. However, if we can get access to the global address list, that's the gold, because we can go through and we can find all of the generic accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we can work out through browsing through SharePoint or Outlook or whatever it looks like, what their generic account password looks like when they're setting passwords for users, we can then use that generic account.
And then you can password spray.
Right. Well, not even. We don't even. We can password spray against the generic
against
accounts.
The whole global address list.
But then generic accounts have never got an MFA set.
Yeah, that's the benefit.
Or there may be a new user account that's been set up. An MFA hasn't been set up yet because the user hasn't logged in.
Yes, so common, that issue.
Look, and that's my favourite thing to do. SharePoint is just that wealth of information. There's always passwords in there.
All the instructions to access all the apps that you'll ever need.
Service accounts. Service account passwords are always in SharePoint, and they're domain administrator accounts.
Yeah, most of the time.
All I need is one service account, and then all of a sudden I can RDP to the domain controller, create accounts, drop files into the root of C, start abusing things in System 32, do process hollowing and a bunch of other things, and then we've got persistent footholds in the network.
That's right, it's effective. And look, we could talk about this all day, right? But we said we were going to try to keep it short, so I think we should wrap it up.
So
have some final thoughts.
What should organisations do, really, is the question.
That's the big question.
Engage red teams, engage adversary sim. It's probably important to talk about how a red team or adversary sim looks as a wrap-up. And from my perspective, it's always a time-boxed engagement. So
it has to be.
Clients will engage us, and they're always asking, what's the approach to a red team?
But look, this is why it's important to really work with the client to understand what's important to them, right? What's valuable to them? What's their business revolving around? And then you need to have that as a focus of the engagement. Because there's so many different steps. I mean, if you look at the MITRE ATT&CK framework, there's a million things you can do, right? And to scope under an engagement. But if you're doing things the client doesn't care about, to reach goals the client doesn't care about, you're not going to get value for the engagement. It has to be a layered approach. You need to talk to the client about what's important to them and what they need to get out of it.
And what's their budget.
Set that as a focus.
And what's the budget.
What's their budget and how much time can you spend on it?
Right. And this is why Sal and I will always ask, what's your budget? And we're not asking that to be able to con people or anything like that, to be like, oh, well, we normally charge this, but now we're going to charge this because your budget is higher. It's simply because if you say your budget's 25 grand,
but we know what we can do.
We go, great. Well, we'll time box an engagement for 10 days. We'll give 3 days to Bianca to go and do a bunch of CTI.
Do the threat intelligence.
We've then got 6 days to hack all the things and use all that's there.
Initial access, phishing, physical,
everything. And then you've got a day to write the report and talk to the client. So we need to have that time box and to know what that budget is. And as more budget becomes available, we've got a bigger budget, we can do more things.
Absolutely.
So I think that's key, and for anyone watching this, really that's what we're looking for, is helping us to say, if this is something you want to do, which all organisations should be doing, it's let us know what your budget is and let us know what your end goal is and what really matters to you, and we'll time box it and give it to the team. So
and set up the engagement such that we reach those objectives, provide value, let the client know where they need to fix the holes, right? Along the whole chain, not just on the perimeter, but throughout the whole network in such a way that fits within their budget. And then once they've done that, once they've done one round, maybe they become a bit more mature over the next 2 years. Maybe they have a bit more to spend, and maybe we can focus on different areas, right?
Exactly.
We need to focus on the most important things first, the things that are most critical,
Yes.
and then we can move on and make it just stronger and stronger over time. It's a recurring process.
Yep, and let the client know what good looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you in a good place? Are you in an okay place? Or are you in a bad place? If you're in a bad place, these are the things you need to fix.
Perfect. Well, look, it's been great to chat to you, Nick, about it. Pleasure as always.
We could talk for hours, as always. We're
could.
trying to keep Cybeers a little bit shorter now. We've heard some feedback. They've been a little bit too long. So if you've gotten through this one again, thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
We very much hope you learned something. And if you've got any questions, as always, reach out.
Catch you in the next one.
See you on the next one. Cheers.